If I would have told you 5 years ago, maybe even 2 years ago, or let's say 3 years ago, because 2 years ago you technically had Olaivavega, almost forgot his name there, who's a projected first-round tackle before 2023 even started. Let's go back to 2022 or 2021. I tell you that in a few years, Penn State's offensive line is going to be the best in America, or certainly in contention for being the best in America. I tell you that the offensive line is so good that even with injuries, some health concerns, limitations at wide receiver, and sometimes limitations at quarterback and offensive coordinator, that running backs named Nicholas Singleton and Kaytron Allen are in a prime position to be the number 1 and number 2 running backs in terms of all-time rushing yards for Penn State. You would ask what type of weed I'm smoking or what type of hard drugs I'm doing if maybe you don't consider weed a hard drug. That would be your reaction to my statement. No doubt. That would be the reaction. And yet, that's reality right now. You're talking about an offensive line that returns 4,166 snaps. And 2 of the starters, at least by the end of the year, had Pro Football Focus grades of 73 or better. And 2 additional ones had grades of 61 or better. This is a veteran unit with size, with talent, with coaching, experience, chemistry. This is the offensive line that Michigan used to have in 2021, 2022, and 2023, when they would bully people. Remember back in 2023, when Michigan ran for 32 straight plays against Penn State's elite defense, full of NFL talent, one of the best defenses in the 2020s and in the 21st century. Penn State had that year. Michigan ran it 32 straight times and beat them. Now, a huge part of that was Penn State having offensive issues and Michigan having an elite defense that was actually better than that Penn State defense. But still, the fact that Michigan's O-line could do that and create some explosive runs and some consistent runs and get some consistent push is impressive. I mean, they were pushing Chop Robinson, Adisa Isaac, Zane Durant, Abdul Carter. They were pushing them off the ball many of the time, much of the time. And other times Penn State was, getting some TFLs and holding their own. The point I'm trying to make is this offensive line might be able to do that. They might be able to run 32 times in a row. Let's say it's on the road. And much like how Michigan struggles to beat Penn State on the road historically, Penn State struggles to beat Ohio State on the road historically. Painting the picture for you. It's 3rd and 5. Matt Patricia, because he's known for using his linebackers, having a bunch of creative packages, let's say early on that because Jermaine Matthews Jr. and Devin Sanchez and Davison Igbinosun and Caleb Downs, they're so good in coverage. Everything for Ohio State's defensive backfield pans out, such that they're so good in coverage that Penn State can't pass the ball, even though they have good wide receivers. And that Ohio State, with Bo Atkinson and Kenyatta Jackson Jr. and maybe some Sonny Styles and Caleb Downs, is able to generate enough pressure, along with Arvell Reese, to where it's just not conducive. It's not maybe a good idea to pass the ball all that much. And then you get to a situation, it's early in the game, it's 3rd and 1, Drew Allar is, whether it's the shotgun or under center, and Penn State, they have the depth at the O-line to where they bring in a 6th O-lineman. Let's say that's Drew Shelton or Anthony Donkok or Rucci, one of the tackles. They're so deep at tackle that there's going to be a good tackle that actually doesn't start this year for Penn State. They bring him in, and James Franklin and Andy Kotelnicki are talking, and they say, we should just run this thing. We have to. Their D-tackle room is weak enough, and their defense overall is at least weak enough in comparison to our run defense to where this should work. And they talk to Jim Knowles, and they say, hey, you got this. Can you hold these guys to around 20 points? And he says, yeah, can do it. And they do. And Penn State runs the ball 20 straight times, maybe has a few passes mixed in there to keep Ohio State honest, and then they run 10 more times to close out the game. And they beat Ohio State in Columbus let's say 23-13. Amazing defensive effort, but also they're on the field for 35 or 40 minutes, and they're constantly in the lead, and they just choke Ohio State out. Or 4th and 2, they bring in an extra offensive lineman, and Ohio State, who's traditionally been way more physical than Penn State, who's recruited and developed better on the O-line traditionally than Penn State, and also on the D-line. Let's say Penn State brings in a 6th offensive lineman, they hand the ball off to Kaytron Allen, or even juicier, they do a 2-yard QB sneak with Allar, with that extra protection, extra tight ends, and Ohio State just can't stop it. Can't do anything. Crowd's roaring. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Just hits 0. Fans are calling for the delay of game. Doesn't matter. They snap it. The refs don't call it. And it's a critical 4th down conversion. And Penn State just bleeds more clock. Long-winded, I know. But that's how good this Penn State O-line is. This line helped Nicholas Singleton and Kaytron Allen both hit 1,000 yards last year. The rushing attack was not the reason why the offense struggled at all, nor why the team lost 3 of their 16 games played. The offensive line and running back room for the first time for Penn State was the reason they were in any of their big games. It's the reason why Ohio State's vaunted pass rush really only got to Drew Allar for coverage sacks. It's the reason why they were able to run against Ohio State really at all occasionally. And Tyler Warren as well, tight end, so blocker and skill position player. When Ohio State knew that Penn State couldn't pass on him, it was the only reason they were in the game with Oregon. Tom Allen's defense couldn't stop a nosebleed, couldn't stop as some would say, couldn't stop like frozen syrup. He couldn't stop an ice cube, couldn't crush a grape in a food fight. And Allar was struggling with completions and threw some picks. And Penn State ran for nearly 10 yards per carry. Nick Dawkins, Olaivavega Ioane, Cooper Cousins, Nolan Nucci, Anthony Donkok, maybe a mix in some Drew Shelton there as your 6th guy, maybe some Jevin Williams, Alex Birchmeier, etc. That's your O-line this year if you're Penn State. And that is one of the best units in college football. That's an awesome unit right there. Who's stopping that unit? Who is lining up, especially in run blocking? They struggled a little bit in pass blocking last year. It was around Ohio State and Nebraska level pass blocking in terms of pressures given up per snap. Dawkins at a 53.8 pass blocking grade. Cousins was a 36.1, though he didn't start. Rucci's was a 63.2. Shelton's was a 36.1, and Donkok's was a 66.6. All of those players, all of them I just named, outside of Olaivavega Ioane, had far better run blocking grades than pass blocking grades. And Ioane's grade was still a 73 in run blocking. All of these offensive linemen, last set of Dawkins weighed over 300 pounds. Dawkins this year will probably weigh just over 300, I would expect, as Chuck Losey and that elite strength and conditioning program continue to work on this unit. This is much deeper of a unit than it was last year. It's one of the best in the country. And I don't think that really anyone in the Big Ten or nationally could slow down this rushing offense in the sense of completely stopping it. They could slow it down. They could limit it. They could force Penn State to, punt a few times or keep them honest through the air. But this unit could probably run 32 times in a row, I think, on some of the better running defenses in the country. Maybe not the same unit that Penn State's front 7 was in 2023, but they could run on most front 7s forever and have success and win games. This unit's that good. Ohio State's defense last year was the epitome of you will not run on us. And if you're going to beat us, you have to beat our corners. That's why Texas was able to score 14 points. That's why Notre Dame was able to score 14 of their 23 points, or actually 16 of their 23 points. They targeted the corners, and it worked because their corners last year were, for Ohio State standards, weak. For national standards, I'd say just above average at best. Caleb Downs and the front 7 did a lot for those corners because every position outside of Burke and Igbinosun were elite. Honestly, they played like it. If you're Penn State, I wonder if, and it was the same thing, by the way, with Penn State's defense in 2023. Corners were a little bit of a weakness. Linebacker and D-line were just insanely good. Insanely good. Those defenses were actually pretty similar now that I somewhat look back on it. How you beat them was corners. How Michigan's O-line beat them was just running the ball on them for Penn State in 23. And then we didn't see an O-line or rushing offense really that good face those Buckeyes in 24 all season long, at least with a quarterback as mobile as McCarthy. So some differences there. But the point being, I think that Penn State took being out-physicaled for years in the trenches to heart. That's why they have Deion Barnes as their D-line coach, and their D-line right now is deep. I think deeper than it's ever been at D-tackle in terms of size and playable bodies over 300 pounds, so Big Ten quality D-tackles. And then you look at this offensive line here with the starters. All of these players outside of one, not even that, all of them started last year that I named outside of Jevin Williams. I mean, and Cooper Cousins. They have 5 players who had multiple starts coming back. And Dawkins and Ioane and Shelton started for the entirety of the season. Dunko started for the vast majority of the season before he got a season-ending injury tragically against Minnesota, and the line still flourished after that. And then Nucci came on as the year started to end, and he played like a 5-star offensive tackle. I'm very high on this unit. I think Trautwein is one of the best in the business. Same with Losi, the strength and conditioning coach. And Kotelnicki loves physicality, loves big offensive linemen, and as an offensive coordinator, he's one of the best in the business. So I see this unit having success. It'll be way better than last year. Its only weakness might be in pass blocking, where they had some issues last year. I don't know if this will be an elite pass blocking unit or the best pass blocking unit in the country. I'd be inclined to say probably not, but I think it'll be a near elite group in that category at the least, or maybe great at the worst, and they're going to be the number 1 run blocking offensive line. I have absolute confidence in that. They're deep, they're talented, they're veteran, seasoned, well coached, smart, good character. I mean, all of those things matter. They're a fit in every sense of the term. That's your Penn State offensive line entering 2025. Make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, comment your thoughts down below on my analysis and your thoughts on the room overall as well, and make sure to hit the notification bell. Go Nittany Lions, and thanks for watching.